Welcome to Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff, where we interview newsmakers, storytellers, and all-around interesting people. Sit back, relax, unless you're driving, and enjoy the show. Here's Jackson.
Hello. I am Jackson Huff. This is Not in a Huff. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, really appreciate it. This week, an extra special guest, at least in the world of Jackson and the things that he likes. I'm interviewing Stan Zimmerman. Now, I think that we've talked briefly about it to other people in the past. I always try to find that connection if possible, but this is a very strong connection, and that is to a TV show that I guess is kind of a guilty pleasure to me, and that is The Golden Girls, a show that was on from 1985 to 1992, starred some of, I guess, TV's most beloved people in their golden years, so to speak. It's kind of funny because I think they were kind of in their late 50s, and that's young in today's world. But you had Betty White, Estelle Getty, Rue McClanahan, of course, the legendary B. Arthur. Just an amazing show. And Stan Zimmerman was actually a writer on the show in its first season. So just an absolute treat, an absolute pleasure to speak with him. I'll tell you, I think maybe a year or two ago, I saw an interview with Stan, and I thought, man, he is really, really awesome. I would love to have him on the show. I don't know why I just never actually got around to inviting him. I wish I would have done that much sooner, because when I did reach out, he was happy to join me. I was excited about it for several weeks leading up to it. But yeah, spoke with Stan. We're going to talk a lot about his time on the Golden Girls, a lot about writing that legendary first season and just what it looks like to be a TV writer. We're going to talk about some of the other shows that he's written for, because they're just as historic, just as legendary as well. He wrote, after leaving the Golden Girls, for Roseanne, and just the interesting nature of being a part of that show, and the temperamental, volatile parts that was Roseanne Barr back then, and I think some would say still. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about how he wrote for another show that has a cult following that please don't come for me, but I've never watched, and that is the Gilmore Girls. So that's kind of leads into his book, The Girls from Golden to Gilmore. So I think Golden Girl fans are really going to enjoy this. Roseanne fans, Gilmore Girl fans, just an amazing story. We're going to start kind of where Stan developed his love for TV. It started young, creating his own television station in his bedroom. Amazing story there. We're going to talk about what it looks like to be a TV writer, how you go kind of from gig to gig there. There's so much we could have covered that we just wouldn't even get to in his career. He wrote for a show called Rita Rocks on Lifetime. He wrote the Brady Bunch movie in the 90s. I'm telling you, he's just an amazing guy. I'd love to have him back at some point. But yeah, I was honored to speak with Stan. We do talk a little bit about after writing for TV shows. Not that that's over with, but some of the things that he's currently doing, that is writing plays. Just a lot covered this week. I hope, pray, urge that one of the plays that he's written that's making its debut on stages across the country, kind of the male version of the Golden Girls, eventually that gets picked up for a TV show. I know it was in the works at one point, but amazing conversation. Here is Stan Zimmerman. I'm here today with Stan Zimmerman. Mr. Zimmerman, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Your credits, they're a mile long. I've listened to you on a lot of different interviews. Some people go through them all and bore you. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make it easier for myself, I guess, kind of lazier aspect. You introduce yourself, highlight what you want to highlight, forget the things you want to forget.
There's a lot I'd like to forget. Where do you want me to start? I mean, it is like you say, it's a vast and annoying credit list, but when you get to a certain age, things add up. But yeah, I started when I was very young, 7 and a half. Thought I'd be an actor. Went to NYU to. I thought to be an actor. I had to audition to get in, and I got into NYU Circle in the Square drama undergrad program. And at NYU, I met my future writing partner, James Berg, and we would make each other laugh on the street. And then we decided, for some reason, to talk about our love for television. And then we thought, why don't we write a TV pilot, not knowing what that would even be. And so, in between classes and after school jobs, we would get together and we started writing. And he was a journalism major and had a book for agents, I guess. And so we just started submitting around, and we found this young agent who really only handled newscasters, but he took us on and got our material out to LA. And I was working for a casting director named Leonard Finger in New York. And one day, our agent called and said, "There's a somebody out in California at LA at Paramount. They read your scripts and liked them." Oddly, he went to high school with my boss.
Hmm.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. And they were really good friends. And so this man in LA kind of became our mentor. His name is Gary Keeper. Unfortunately, he passed many years ago, but he did get to see us start a career in Hollywood. And we just worked really hard, wrote a lot of spec scripts, and then suddenly, after nobody returning our call, we started getting offers to do TV shows. And luckily, the second TV series that we got to be on staff for was The Golden Girls.
Got it too.
Oh, look at you. Very
Yeah.
good. Yes.
There you go. No, that was a great little introduction. We're going to kind of unpack all that and expand upon it. Let's kind of start. Let's go backwards. Let's start with you as a kid, because that's the part that I find funny. Just you kind of in your room, creating your own network. And that sounds cool. Okay, yeah, you decided to create a network, but you went real intense with it. Scheduled each hour, put it against other TV shows. The thing that made me laugh that I heard you talk about is how you even shows that had been canceled at other networks. You're like, no, I think that's still got some life. I'm gonna bring it over to my network. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that just shows your early passion for TV.
Yes. Back then, if a TV show was canceled, it was. Are you drinking vodka now? Is that what's going to
No,
happen?
it's just water.
I just have my coffee. But yeah, so if a show is canceled, the show is canceled. No other network ever picked up a show. And I thought that was odd. If I really liked it and I thought there was still an audience, why not put it on my network? And I did that with the show Taxi. And then oddly, someone did that. It was on ABC and they took it over to CBS and to NBC, I think. But that had never been done. So I felt like I was a trailblazer at, the age of 12 or whatever. And I had a lot of crazy ideas that ended up actually becoming people did them. Like there was a TV show called Love American Style, which was different, like 15-minute vignettes. It was always like love in the something, love in the four-poster bed, or love in the good old days. And there was one called Love in the Good Old Days, which was about a 50s family, and it starred Ron Howard. And I really loved American Graffiti, and I thought, well, Ron Howard, this should be a TV show. So I put The Good Old Days on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. And then, like a few months later, I turned on the TV, or I read in TV Guide that ABC has a show called Happy Days.
Mhm.
And I was furious. I ran down to my mother and I said, "You've been looking in my room." And she said she hadn't. But yeah, I was very intense about this. I made advertisements. I held mock interviews and press conferences in my bedroom, all in my head. So I probably should have been a network executive, but nobody would hire me. And this writing thing just kept happening and happening.
Yeah, and I feel like that Happy Days thing is something that has grinded your gears for a while, because I have that as a question. I said that your mom basically sold the rights to Happy Days out from under you. So you
Yeah, and
you were a trailblazer. You were the one that maybe you didn't call him Richie Cunningham, but you basically created the show.
Well, whoever wrote that episode, which I still don't know, maybe it was Gary Marshall. But whoever wrote that episode, yes, they deserve credit for it. But it was my mastermind that wanted to make it a weekly series. And yeah, I really enjoyed just coming up with ideas, or if I saw a TV movie that I really liked, I would turn it into a weekly series. Another one that they did steal, there was this movie that we called The Night Stalker,
Hmm.
which was scared the hell out of me. I watched it one night, unfortunately, while my parents were away and we just had a babysitter. Not a good idea. But that ended up being a series as well. So I felt like, oh, I'm on the right track. Obviously, these thoughts are, I probably would have been a good executive, but it's very interesting that those careers, they keep them very separate. You know, you would think it would be really good to have like a writer or a creative creator in one of those executive positions, but I think they make those more business people and
Hmm.
very different. I always thought it would be nice to have someone in that job that really understood what it's like to have a blank page and to come up with something out of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I assume just like you said, it's just because of, maybe there's too much emotion behind it. Just like in my world of education, the administrative side and the academic side, two totally different worlds. And it's because, the academics, they've got the soft hearts, and we would never cut a program. We've got to think of it as the business side. So I would assume that's the case, but I have no idea. But I like that you said another idea that they stole from me. Even though this is up in your room in your head, these people have stolen your ideas.
Yeah. Well, when I teach acting classes, I talk about show business being those two parts as well. There's the business part where you kind of have to wear a hard hat because it's really a rough business. And then the show part is when you're writing or being an artist, you have to open your heart and be very vulnerable. And those are two very different things. And some people have a hard time juggling that. I was always very good with that. It also helped to have a writing partner to say, no, you're letting your emotions get into it. This is strictly business. Like just,
Hmm.
and vice versa. We do that for both of each other. And still to this day, we've been lucky to, have had people in many decades want us to write. This past year, right before the writer's strike, we got a gig and had to write a script in like 4 weeks for a Lifetime Christmas movie called The Divas Christmas. And it was super fun. And it starred a few people you might know, like Donna Mills and Nicolette Sheridan and Morgan Fairchild and Lonnie Anderson and Linda Gray. And that was kind of cool and very on brand with me and my girls.
I love it. I love it for sure. And I want to kind of get to, you said you could have been a network executive. Let's talk about another career that you could have done. Let's move you into college. And I guess if you were just a little bit more chill about some photography, I guess you could have been a muse as well. So let's talk about how you met. Who did you meet? I wrote it down. Where's it at? What's the guy's name? Oh
Andy
my gosh.
Warhol?
Andy Warhol. Yeah. My goodness. I
Yeah.
was going to say Jackson Pollock just because that's my name, but
No, I would like to have seen what he would have done with my image. Um, that would have been cool. No, I was dating someone who was very good friends with Andy Warhol, but I mean, I was a Midwestern boy. I did not know who Andy Warhol was. I guess I was a little bit too young for all of that. But he got me into Studio 54, and so I would hang out there and felt completely like an imposter and I didn't belong. And then one night, sitting on a couch, the woman sitting next to me started like doing this to me, and I'm like, "What?" She points up, and right above me is Andy Warhol taking my picture.
hmm.
And like an idiot, I told him to stop. I didn't know who he was. Yeah, so I will admit, a little intoxicated, and I was paranoid, I guess. I thought, like, with each picture, he was taking a part of my soul.
You're like the Amish or something.
Yeah, it was a little crazy. But somewhere in the Andy Warhol archives in Baltimore, Maryland, lies some photos of a out of place Midwestern gawky Jewish boy at Studio 54.
I like it. And I can't believe I forgot his name. I was just to kind of dive deep into your interviews. I was almost going to wear, I've got a shirt that's got like the Campbell soup in different colors. So
Oh, yeah.
I know Andy Warhol, but it blanked me for a second. But let's kind of jump. We're going to jump really, really fast because you've got a
Okay.
lot of stuff, but not too far. But let's start talking about the Golden Girls. I mean, that's the show that I like the most of that you've been a part of. I don't know. I would say that I'm not necessarily the demographic that watches it now, but I think everyone watches. I think everyone loves it. So let's talk about how you joined joined the show. I believe as a staff writer.
Yeah, we got offered the opportunity to go in and pitch episodes, and we luckily got an episode gig, which is just one paid for one episode.
Hmm.
And we did such a good job, I guess, with the first draft that they brought us on right away. It was a small staff and experienced writers, and you know, back then it's not like streaming days now where you do, 8 episodes or 10 episodes. There were like 24, 26 episodes in a season. So there's a lot of burnout. So to have writers and especially young writers come in and be able to bang out a good first draft that they can then what they call table, meaning all the writers sit around a table and punch up different jokes and fix the script. So they were very smart and they brought us on right away and with no guarantee to write another script. But then they kept giving us scripts, and luckily we had three that season with our name on it. Even though you do end up working on all the scripts, and some people find that hard to believe. They're just like, "Oh, which one did you write?" Well,
Mhm.
I was there, the first season, so we were involved in all of them, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that would surprise people who don't know very much about the show. It's that most of the writers were very young. I mean, I don't want to shock the people who aren't seeing this, but it came out in 1985. I don't believe you're about 106 years old right now. So it was a pretty
Sometimes I feel it, yes, yeah.
it was a relatively young writer's room. So I mean, what was that like? Definitely when they told you, hey, you're going to be writing, about women of a certain age. Did you think, that sign me up, or did you think this is going to be a challenge?
No, I never thought that would be hard. That never came across my mind. It was, to me, it's about the heart and soul of the character, and it's about really for me putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So it was just putting myself in maybe some orthopedic shoes, but they were still shoes. And I talk about in the book my love for my grandmother, and I think feeling always like an outsider and very sympathetic to other people, wondering what her life is like and what does she worry about. And so that wasn't very difficult. And also, I think my acting background gave me a good viewpoint into characters because you are taking on characters, but you're you're not become another person. You're finding the similarities within yourself.
Mhm.
So that's what we would always do is how do we feel like Rose or Blanche? There's a commonality, and I think that's one of the reasons why the show is still so popular. I think no matter who you are, whatever demo, you can relate to somebody in that house and
Mhm.
those attitudes. And that's the genius of Susan Harrison, her creating and picking those four specific characters to embody that show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you too. This is an easy question for me to ask, but maybe not as easy to answer. You normally bring that mug with a line on it that you wrote that you get no money for. So maybe it's a touchy subject, but what are some of your favorite lines from the season that you were a part of, maybe that you wrote yourself?
Well, no, no, I will not have a nice day. It's kind of probably the famous one. I haven't been in that position. I only get in that position when I give birth. I mean, there were just so many. And what Blanche dog ears? I have all the t-shirts. I mean,
Yeah.
people have made, what's the one? I, Sir, am a lady. You can kiss my A. I mean, shockingly, there were a lot of lines that we came up with in our first drafts that made it into the show and then now have become synonymous with the show, but also have a kind of a history on their own.
Mhm.
Of course, when you're writing them, you don't write them to think like, well, we didn't even know there'd be internet or any of this,
Right.
We didn't think of the future. We just knew you had to be truthful with the characters in the moment. And luckily, that has had a life of its own.
Yeah, it certainly has. So, we talked about how you it didn't kind of scare you at all, or give you pause to write towards ladies of a certain age, as I said before. What was it like though to know? I don't know whether when you first signed on you knew the who the actors were going to be, but what was it like to know who you were writing for? Because you know all of them had quite the career before the Golden Girls, and a pretty illustrious careers at that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I wasn't scared about writing for the characters. I was scared to just be in an elevator with B. Arthur. So, I mean, I guess she was the most intimidating one of all. Just she was a legend, and I had been a huge fan of Maude. Betty White seemed more approachable because she was just, but I'd watched her I Sue and Niven on Mary Tyler Moore and on Mama's Family, and I knew Rue McClanahan. Estelle Getty I had seen recently in Torch Song Trilogy on Broadway, so I was more excited to work with her. She didn't intimidate me, and right away she kind of palled up to us and made us feel comfortable. But B. Arthur was, she came with an image like you thought she was going to bite your head off, and really she's kind of a pussycat underneath all that.
Mm. Well, I like to hear that. I feel like even some of the actresses were intimidated by her. I've read, all of their books, and I think that Betty White even said that she loved B. Arthur, but B. Arthur never really liked her very well. So I think that she was the one that maybe what people were most afraid of.
Well, I think, she was also at a point in her career, she didn't need to do another TV show, but she wanted to, and she really respected the writers. And she knew it's hard to get a really good show with really good actors and really good writing. All those pieces together, but they
Mm,
came together for Golden Girls, and that's another reason why it lives on today.
mm,
Um, so, but she, I mean, I feel like with me now, the older I get, it's like I don't need to put up with certain shit, and you can kind
mhm.
of say what you want to say. And, that's what was so funny about the Sophia character. She just like spoke her mind. There was no filter.
Yeah.
And I think people really love that about them. Um, but yeah, rightly so, B knew what she liked and what she didn't like. You don't make all those hours of television and not, and she was starring as Maude, so she kind of knew, and she got to a level in her career, she knew what she could do that would be funny. And I think that's why you see certain actors rise to that level of success because they're able to harness all this, whatever talent they have and their specialness and be able to use it, play it. When I was studying acting, we would say your body is your instrument. And she really knew how to play her instrument well.
Mm.
And when I teach acting, some actors, they come to me, I'm like, why are you not working every day? But they don't know how to, they're not in tune with their body, and so they don't know how to use it to its best advantage.
Yeah, no, I get that. I wonder too, because you mentioned it earlier, how your names are on three scripts and some really big episodes, some monumental episodes. But I just wonder what exactly does that mean? Because you talked about how you probably played a part on all that the scripts on that first season. So was it the person's name on it's the one that actually kind of came up with the idea and didn't just be the one punching it up, or what is it? What's that look like?
No, it's more of a clerical thing. Usually, what it is, you're the writer or writers that go off and write the first draft. That's how you get your name on something.
Mm,
Sometimes on a show, you're in such a hurry and a panic that they'll pick a name, but everybody will write it. Sometimes they'll just divvy up scenes if you're really in a rush.
mhm.
Um, but normally, it is an episode you came in and pitched. But sometimes they'll just say, I don't really want to write this, or you should write this. I'm writing something else. But it's whoever goes off and does the first draft is pretty much 99% of the time would get the writing credit.
I got you.
Sometimes it's broken up. It could be story by, and then screenplay by, and then some. Usually, it's just the whole thing together.
I got you. I got you. So, I mean, in retrospect, this is a an easy thing to ask now, but who who knows? Everyone thinks that what they're doing is the next biggest thing. But did you guys even realize you kind of had lightning in a bottle at that moment, and that you would, 30, almost 40 years later, be sitting and talking to me about it?
You sitting there
Yeah,
Indianapolis drinking vodka. Now I'm just going to spread rumors about you.
you
Um,
can.
no, I knew it was special because the actors involved, and I knew it was really good writing, and I knew it was really funny. And right away, you could tell audiences were connecting to it just by the studio audiences before it aired, and then once it started airing, it just started exploding in ratings, and people all ages loved it. And I think it's my Midwestern upbringing that really taught me to stop and take it in and appreciate it. And so every
Mm,
step of the way, I felt really, really lucky that we had this opportunity with these actors in this show, the whole thing together. But when you're young, you don't think of 20 years down the line. You're just thinking, keep this job, and I want people to like me, and I want a career, and all those other things happening. You're not thinking about, and I wonder if like new writers today, um, I mean, I guess a little bit you do. When we were writing the Lifetime movie, sometimes we would laugh and go, "Oh, is this going to be on a t-shirt in 25 years?" You know, but it's hard to come up with like a like a meme kind of line. You have to really write truthfully, and if they become memes or t-shirts, that's icing on the cake.
mm.
But you always have to serve the characters and the story.
Yeah. Oh, I like that for sure. And as much as I would love to just talk about Golden Girls the entire time, I want to
Oh, let's
touch
do that.
I want to touch on the rest of your career.
I thought you
And
were saying, well, I want to touch on Roseanne, and I'd be like, do not touch Roseanne.
that's exactly the question I'm going to ask you.
Uh-oh.
Moving into Roseanne, I think that was a little bit of a different experience. I mean, it was a monumental show as well, but it was a different world. I think that you were, I don't remember what your shirt said. You were writer number what?
13.
There you go. So it was a different world. I think, we talked about B. Arthur being intimidating, but I feel like Roseanne Barr probably took it to a different level.
Oh my God, there would be no. I was warned, do not let her see the whites of your eyes or she'll fire you.
Mhm.
Uh, but I was delusional and I thought for some reason I had magical powers. It's a little bit of my Jesus complex. Um, and I thought if I hugged her, I would make her all better and she would love the world and be very happy and positive. I didn't know that much about mental illness at the time, which I've since learned about it. And it's pretty heavy. And, her issues now seem to be even exasperated. I mean, I can't even, even try to explain where she gets some of her crazy thoughts now. I really feel she's kind of gone off a little bit, probably off her medication. On Roseanne, they tried to kind of work some new medications just the right degree to what they call feed the monster. They had a network star and they had to, I think someone made a documentary called Feeding the Monster about her. Um, I think we're in it. But it's about, all those stars back then when you think of Cosby and Tim Allen and, they were these stand-up comics that they created these shows around and they needed to keep them going. So they were going to keep Roseanne going at all costs. And Carsey, one of the producers, were banned by Roseanne to come on set. But again, it was feeding the monster. And for them, having, multiple episodes in a big hit show is more important for them to, I guess, walk onto a set.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so they were never around. And even though we were in the building with them, they were upstairs and in the corner. We knew them because we knew some of the executives, and they would talk to us, have us come up and talk about developing other shows. But yeah, it was a very, very interesting way of shooting the show. Roseanne I didn't like a lot of takes. She didn't care if her hair was messed up. She wanted to feel very raw and spontaneous. So it would be like we'd be done within an hour. I mean, sometimes even less, which is a lot when you're like, doing different takes or different scenes in different locations. Um, but she just kept it going, keep going, keep going.
Hmm.
And I think that's another reason why her show is still so popular and still so influential because it did feel like real life.
Yeah.
And when I went to Moscow in 2015 to help them develop a Russian Roseanne show, um, first what we did was we translated the script word for word into Russian, and I worked with a Russian writer. And then we had to have them adapt it to their culture and their story. And they kept saying, well, why isn't the show funnier? They wanted to be big and broad and a big sitcom. And I had to explain to them that's not what Roseanne was. And that's what I loved about it. It was more like real life and it was really funny, but also there were moments that were sad or scary or tough story to deal with.
Well,
But
you think
always
I'm
dealt
drinking
honest.
vodka? Here's cheers, Scout, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, I learned how to drink vodka there. I didn't know you drank it. They laughed at me when I was said I want it with my dinner. They're like, no, you do shots before dinner.
Hmm.
And you pour a little thing and you bang the table and then you go to your mom. But you do that like 5 or 6 times if you had a big family, and then suddenly before food comes, you're just like, I need to get a cab and get home.
And I think I've heard you talk about it, but I assume you talked about just translating it into to Russian. Some of the topics covered in Roseanne, I'm sure was not going to fly on Russian television. So was it? I mean, were you guys starting that censoring process, or what'd that look like?
Well, that was a big concern when I got the job. And I was like, I prayed that I would get a job here in the US and I wouldn't have to go because Sony had been talking about me going over there. And I had seen Phil Rosenthal did a documentary about going over there and being one of the first Americans to take a sitcom, which he did with Everybody Loves Raymond. And it's still being done there. Now they've like burned through all the episodes and they just are writing new ones.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't get another job, so I had to go. And I actually made a lot of great friends. I really loved it. If it wasn't the political climate now, I would love to go back again. Um, it was a really cool country, and it also opened my eyes just to how different people live, and being in an environment that's really controlled by the government in different ways. Like I didn't know that on a cloudy day they could send a plane through the
Hmm.
clouds and put chemicals to open up the clouds to make sunshine. Like
Hmm.
we don't know anything like that here.
Right.
And so they would do that so that the people would say, "Look what our government brought us sunshine," and little things like that along the way. I was surprised that a lot of my coworkers would openly talk about how they felt about Putin or about just the world, and then we'd be out at a cafe, and I'm like, "Shh, quiet." And I did go over very paranoid. The first thing I did was contact the American consulate and just say, "Here's my address. Here's where I am."
Hmm.
But as far as content, I was very concerned, and one day I did call Sony like a week before I left, and I said, "I've been reading a lot about, you could get jailed if you do anything talk about LGBTQ content, anything." I said, "You do know I wrote the lesbian kiss episode, so what happens if I'm at work and someone starts talking about or asks me what episode?" And they were like, "We're just dealing with the first season or two, so you don't have to bring it up."
Hmm.
I, okay, I won't bring it up. And it never came up. But yeah, one of the actresses we did test for the show, I found, she was a singer and really funny actress. She was one of the few people in Russia that I think she had an LGBTQ family member or an uncle, and she was very progressive. And there
Hmm.
it was, you can't talk like that in public. But she became very popular, and I think she would have been good. She was a little old for the part, but she had the right qualities that Roseanne had. I did not know before going over there that they don't have any comedy stores or, stand-up comedy
Mm,
venues. I would think that would be very popular there. People could, get drunk and listen to
hmm.
comics. And that's how Roseanne got found. So I got to Russia and I said, just take me out every night to a comedy club. And they goes, oh, no, no, we don't have those here.
Mm.
So someone could make a killing if they opened up. I should talk to Pauly Shore about that. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, and I guess it's just too bad that it didn't work out a little better. You could have been Phil Rosenthal. We could be talking now with you somewhere else, eating your way across the world, right?
I know I could be. Yes. Oh, I love his show, and
Yeah.
I don't know how he stays so thin because he eats so much. But he and I know his wife Monica Horan, and they have been very supportive of my theatrical endeavors out here, and I adore them, and they're good people.
I love to hear that. And I want to move right into the next show. And this is one that has a cult following too that I never seen the first episode of. So
What?
somebody be upset about it, but
Go, get out of here.
there you go. Well, we're talking about Gilmore Girls. I from listening to you in the past, I think it was a fun one to be on, but also maybe a tense, stressful one. So talk about that.
You see a pattern here of these, wonderful shows and very tense working relationships. Um, it was tense. So we got to be friends with Amy Sherman or Amy Sherman Palladino at that point. We met her on Roseanne and stayed friends with her and would help her on pilots and things. And then she was going through many writers for years on Gilmore Girls, and she invited us out for drinks and asked us if we wanted to go on staff for the show. And we were in development and making some good coin on that. And my shock, my writing partner said yes, and we agreed to, go on it for a year. And I'm so glad I did. It was a great writing experience to write that genre and that style and for all those wonderful, wonderful actors. And I met so many great friends, cast members, and fans because I go every year to the Gilmore Fan Festival, which is called the Fan Fest Society. And we're doing it again October 18th through 20th in Guilford, Connecticut. And it's super fun. And it's not like a con where you're waiting in line at tables. You're hanging out with the writers and actors and creative people from the shows, and just we do a lot of panels and things, but we're at the bar all just like being silly, and I'm not karaokeing, but some people will.
Hmm. I gotcha. Well, I don't know too much more about it, so we're gonna move into the next area, and the question I have there is, we talked about with Roseanne that you came in a few seasons in. We talked about Gilmore Girls is a few seasons in. I talked to um, the actress who played the second mom in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and we kind of talked about what it's like to kind of come into an area as an actor, taking over a different role. My question to you is, do you find, in writing it easier, harder, or just different when you come in with established characters and established roles rather than just writing what you see as a character from scratch?
I think they both have pros and cons. I mean, there's really something exciting about creating a show and creating where it's going to go. But there's also something so wonderful about having recurring characters and then taking them into different areas. With Golden Girls, we came on in season one, so there only been a few episodes, but we were there when we named Saint Olaf Saint Olaf. So you get to see what worked in the pilot and continue it on, with, Rose's crazy stories and Picture It Sicily and things like that. Luckily with Golden Girls, it was very popular. When you're on a show that is having some ratings issues and people aren't watching it, then everybody panics and tries to second guess what could make it into a hit show. With Gilmore Girls, it was great. And with Roseanne, because they were really, the people running the shows were interested in the honesty of the characters and wanting to always move them forward and challenge them. So as a writer, that's exciting because you get to, get into some messy stuff and figure out how those characters that we know, how they would deal with them and take them into new and different places, which we did like with Roseanne with the lesbian kiss, or the Roseanne episode where DJ steals a car and she smacks him, and then it suddenly reminds her and brings her back to the time when her dad hit her, when she vowed to never do what her father did, and how that affected her. With Gilmore Girls, we decided on our season for it to be all about relationships coming together and breaking apart. So every relationship in the show either came together or we split them up for a little bit. And it was really cool to see what that did to the dynamics of everybody.
Hmm. No, I think that is really cool, and I guess I kind of want to talk about now because we are talking about the we. You've mentioned your writing partner a few times, but I mean, what's that like? First of all, is most writing done kind of as a team? I can't imagine they're all lifelong teams like you guys have been, but talk about I guess just having that writing partner, being able to have somebody to bounce things off of, and maybe, when things aren't going so well, to grab the wheel when you're about to jump off the cliff.
I've been really lucky to have my best friend be my writing partner since college. I didn't ever think I could become a writer because I wasn't a reader or a writer. I knew this idea. I really didn't know what a writing partnership was, but I knew that there was another human being out there that could bring into my sphere all the things that I didn't know about. I like about the written word, and I didn't feel I was that educated. I knew I was funny, I knew I was creative and clever, but I wasn't like about the words. And writing is about words. So I conjured him up, a little candle, and conjured him up, and he just appeared, luckily, very quickly. And we just hit it off, and luckily, and we found a formula that has kept us to this day to be really connected. And there were times when he didn't really want to work, and he kind of had a midlife crisis and wanted to pull back. Didn't tell me though, and I thought we were going towards a certain goal and working on TV shows after TV shows and kind of working our way up. And he just got burned out, did not want to work on them anymore. And that's when I kind of had to reinvent myself. And we'd gotten into movies as well, but that's when I returned back to theater and started directing plays, and then very quickly started writing plays. And also going back into teaching, where I started teaching actors and also teaching writing. And I'm so glad I had that in my life. But I think that's a real lesson for anybody in any job, is to keep reinventing yourself and being curious about life, and being scrappy and figuring out how to survive. So many people have had to get second or third jobs, and I had to figure out a way to continue to have any income when he really wanted to pull back and was saying no to a lot of possibilities.
Hmm. Yeah, and I want you to kind of highlight the work that you've done in the world of plays, whether it's the writing or the directing of them, what the things that you've done. I know that there's been quite a few plays that you've written, some that kind of is the male version of the Golden Girls, some that have dealt with some really, really intense topics like I believe what have you dealt with suicide? You've dealt with a lot of different things. So just talk a little bit about that world.
Well, the Gay Men's Golden Girls is Silver Foxes, and it started as a TV pilot for Logo. And then when they didn't have money to make the show, even after we had an amazing reading in my living room with George Takei and Leslie Jordan and Bruce Valanche and Melissa Peterman and Sherry O'Terry and Daniel Gaither and Todd Sherry, we decided when no network or streaming company would read the script, we would turn it into a play, because a play I could produce, we could get it produced. So we did. And we had our world premiere last year to sold out audiences in Dallas. And it's about to have its Midwest premiere at the Evolution Theater in Columbus, Ohio, September 6th, which I will be at. And hopefully it'll be done more places. But also I wanted, as funny and real as that play is. I think that's what was so great about Roseanne and Golden Girls. They did was dealt with real issues, but in a humorous way without pandering. And Silver Foxes does that as well. How do as gay men we get older and find our formed families, and survive and be happy and healthy. But about 11, 12 years ago, a very close friend of mine died by suicide, and I didn't know how to handle it as a comedy writer. And he did leave a suicide note, which I couldn't get. I was mentioned in it, but he sent it to his ex-lover, and I couldn't get it. So it led me to my computer and reading other suicide notes, hoping I would find the why in other people's notes. And that led me to creating a play called Right Before I Go, which is RIGHT, but sounds like right, which they do, they write them. And so I created an hour play using real suicide notes and facts. And I've been doing it since 2015. In 2017, I think, a Broadway director I was working with suggested I put my story with my friend into the play, and I fought it as long as I could. And then I started writing a narrator character that was not going to be me. And after many readings, I was urged to just make it me. And so the first reading of it in Orlando, I just said, hire somebody old and funny to play me, and they did. And the day before the production, the actor got a big paying gig and had to leave. And the director said, Stan, you're in. And I've been doing it all over the United States with some famous people, Blair Underwood and Vanessa Williams and Hill Harper and Virginia Madsen, Academy Award nominee, yeah. Yeah, and so that's been really cool. There's a school doing the student version on Friday in Philadelphia, New York, in upstate New York. And so that's so wonderful that this play is now being done all over the world and provoking conversation about a really important topic.
I love it. Well, I've taken you all the way to the brink of your time. Do you have time to talk about your book?
Uh, Always time to talk about.
There you go. You like how I did that? I made sure that we covered everything I needed to cover.
Yes,
Of
you did.
course, of course, you're going to talk about the book. So yeah,
I
I know that it was a long time coming. So talk about how the book, happened, and then let's bring Roseanne back in. How she wound up on the back cover, right?
Okay. Well, it came about because everybody kept asking me how I could write for women, being a man and such a young man. And so I wanted to tell that story, my life story. And then I went back and started going through all my old journals, which I kept since college. And I compared my times on all the TV shows and all the women with how I feel about it now. And that kind of how it started. And I mentioned it at an early Gilmore Girls fan festival, and then they were my accountability coaches and kept saying, "Come on, we want the book." And the good of COVID was I was stuck inside the house, and I forced myself, and luckily got a publisher, Indigo River, sorry. And I just started outlining, and I started just drinking a lot of coffee and sugar-free Red Bull, and that's how this happened. So it's stories about all the wonderful women I've worked with and Roseanne. So that was a little bit of a fight with my publishers. I wanted the Anne Roseanne here,
Uh,
but I think they were afraid that she might get mad. I was like, bring it on. I can handle her. I think. Yeah, but it really is a Valentine's to all the women. It's not, there's a little tea spill, but I don't get mean and bitchy because that's just not me.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, I don't see what good can come of that. But maybe if you take me out for a cocktail, I'll tell a little bit more.
There you go. I like that. I guess I wonder too, when we just talked about your plays and we talked about your book, and maybe you've been at it enough, with shows that you don't even care. But given that, plays are kind of your baby, so to speak, if you're the only one writing them, the book is your own life story. So I wonder what's the harder of the two to to grapple with when maybe you get a bad review? Because I know you've talked about at least some bad reviews when it comes to the book, and maybe a little bit of the T spelling. Um, does any of that affect you either way?
I mean, we really only got bad reviews with Pauly Shore Show. The book got really good reviews. I mean, you can stress about a few things that people commented negatively. Like some people were just like, you name drop a lot. I'm like, but those are the people I worked with. I can't change their names.
Right.
That's been my life. I feel lucky, and
Yeah.
I'm pinching myself that I'm even in rooms with like a Jane Fonda or Lily Tomlin or any of those people.
Uh,
So that's just the reality. And then you'll read a review that says, well, he doesn't talk enough about show business. So I'm like, you can't win in a way. And
yeah.
Lauren Graham did tell me when I did this reality show on Bravo, she said, don't read any comments online because
Uh,
it can be really hurtful. But of course, you do look occasionally, and but I do like nicer reviews better and comments. And I
yeah.
just, I know so many people have gotten so much from this book. And I think they've gotten it for their own life about keeping going and reinventing yourself and picking yourself up when you have something bad happen or a work thing. How do you keep going? And then ultimately, people dealing with grief. And for me, it was the grief of my mother passing. And unfortunately, that was the last chapter of my book that I was not prepared for. So that's not name dropping. That's just real life, and my journey in figuring out a way to survive and want to keep living in a world where my best friend and biggest cheerleader is no longer here with me. I mean, she's here with me here, but she's not physically here. But there's lots of laughs too. And, I am the person I am because of her, and it really is a testament to her. So as Mother Day is coming up, it's especially, this book means a lot to me that someone said, I never met your mother, but I feel like I know her by the person you are today.
Hmm,
And that meant a lot. And some
absolutely.
people have read it. I just had some young guy DM me on Instagram and said, you got me crying at the end. He said, I went to my mom and found her and I just gave her a big hug.
Hmm.
And so if it just did that, I think that's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. How can people pick up the book? How can people follow along with you? I don't know whether you have anything coming up you wanna plug, but I guess here's the time.
Here's a time. Yes, you can find me on Instagram, Zimmerman Stan. I have a website, zimmermanstan.com. You can get the book obviously at Amazon, or there's many other places, local bookstores, or invite me to your town. Get me there, fly me in, and I'd love to do book signing. I love meeting people. I love hearing personal stories about, what Golden Girls or Gilmore Girls or Roseanne meant to you growing up.
No, well, I really, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Great to see you.
So that was Stan Zimmerman. What an honor and a thrill just to speak with him. I urge you to check out his book. I was able to pick it up, and it's just an amazing story about just kind of the triumphs of his life, and it wasn't always an easy thing. That's for sure. Between finding his own identity, finding the identity in his writing, kind of that look from being a TV show writer to now writing some plays, and what it looks like to partner up with another person in your I guess your career endeavors for so long, and then of course the overarching kind of topic of his book, and that is what he gained from learning a lot from the strong women in his life, growing up and beyond. So I urge you to check out The Girls from Golden to Gilmore. I urge you to follow along with Stan. He's got so many amazing things in the works. It's just an amazing story to read when it comes to that book. Amazing stories that he's shared with us for so many years. So, I just think back at some of those episodes in that first season that he wrote for the Golden Girls, and there's some of my favorite episodes. Thinking of some of those lines that are in them. I'm just I'm beside myself that I was able to speak with him. So I appreciate you, Stan. I appreciate you being here. For those who first time listening, do follow along. Lots of amazing guests in the past. A lot of amazing people from TV. A lot of true crime and Olympians and all kinds of amazing people with awesome stories to share. So over 180 guests in the past. So check those out. A lot of amazing guests coming up as well. So hope you'll join in each week. But follow along on Instagram. That's the easiest way to know what has been published. That's Not in a Huff podcast on Instagram, jacksonhuff.com. Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff on Facebook. Go leave a written review on Apple. That helps a lot. Leave a 5-star review on Apple and on Spotify. That's really, really appreciated as well. But we'll see you next week. Take it away, Chris.
This has been Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time where we will interview another amazing guest who is sure to make you laugh or make you think. Or, hey, maybe even both. But until then, keep being awesome.